Now available in paperback and e-readers, All About Nikki, a fabulous first season. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air meets Clueless in this absolutely fabulous African-American 1990s teen sitcom. Get all 13 episodes of All About Nikki, the fabulous first season, in paperback and e-readers today. Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis. One of my viewers wanted me to do another installment in the Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis series. And for this installment in the Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis series, I'm going to be talking about legendary talk show host and media mogul Oprah Winfrey. Now, Oprah Winfrey is one of the black icons of the late 20th century, hosting the legendary Oprah Winfrey Show, which ran from 1986 to 2011 and was considered one of the greatest successes of the black entertainment industry of the 1980s, going on to not only be the host of the Oprah Winfrey Show, which ran for 25 years, but was also known as an actress for films like The Color Purple and producing content such as The Women of Brewster Place and her Oprah Winfrey Presents, and is also known for her Oprah's Book Club and Oprah Magazine, and becoming, again, a media mogul who basically has become a billionaire at this point and has basically a part of controlling the black image. And as she's gone on to have this great success, sadly, she has been on the road to becoming a woman in crisis ever since the day she was born into a very dysfunctional single mother household. Now, Oprah Winfrey was born Oprah Gail Winfrey on January 29, 1954, and was supposed to be named after the biblical figure in the book of Ruth known as Orpah. However, her teenaged mom and her father, Vernon Winfrey, they basically didn't know how to pronounce the word Orpah, so they named her Oprah, and that name basically stuck. And as Oprah Winfrey was born into this home as a teenaged mother, and was growing up in this single mother household because her father did not marry her, and this guy just drifted around. This is where Oprah wound up on the road to becoming a woman in crisis, because her mother, her first teacher, really didn't know much about life or how to navigate life. And since she didn't know much about life, what she did was not be able to teach her daughter what she needed to know as related to her role in God's order. And that's the great irony of Oprah Winfrey, is that while she's named after a biblical figure, she didn't get taught about the role of a woman in God's order, and wasn't taught about the role of a woman in God's order due to the dysfunctional pseudo-Christian religion that was going on in black communities at the time, where black pastors who were basically compromised with the system of white supremacy were not looking to teach the word of God to most of the people in their congregations, but were preaching a religion that would allow them to profit from the economic state of the community and enrich themselves at their expense. And as these pastors basically wound up teaching this pseudo-Christian religion to Oprah Winfrey and the members of that congregation, Oprah was raised in a home not by her teenage mother, but by her grandmother. And as she was raised in that home with her maternal grandmother, Hattie Mae Presley Lee, she was basically in a home where she was living in such poverty that she was wearing dresses that were made of potato sacks, and a lot of children made fun of her as related to wearing these dresses made of potato sacks. And this whole poverty and the situation she was in, basically, I believe, started laying the foundation for Oprah being on the road to becoming this woman in crisis, basically putting her in a place where she felt powerless as related to her life. And even though her grandmother taught her to read before the age of 3, And basically, she was known for being what they called the preacher for reciting Bible verses. What was happening with Oprah Winfrey was she was growing up in an abusive environment as related to the situation with her grandmother. And as she was growing up in that situation with her grandmother, while she was in this situation, what she would do is basically look to escape by making it like she was on a stage and look to escape all the suffering she was going through as related to the poverty and abuse by going out here and creating a rose-colored reality as related to having a life as related to being on that stage. And that was what motivated her possibly to look to aspire to go into this career of entertainment, even though she was growing up in an extremely dysfunctional environment for the first 6 years of her life. And at the age of 6, Oprah Winfrey moved to an inner city neighborhood in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with her single mother, who was less supportive and encouraging than her grandmother. And this whole matriarchal environment basically made it where Oprah was not really getting the development that she needed, and instead what she was getting was a lot of hostility directed at her, and possibly getting that hostility directed at her because her mother worked long hours as a maid. Moreover, when it came to women basically, when they are in a matriarchal environment, they look to compete with their daughters. I talk about this in depth in my book, The Woman Crisis. And because women naturally compete against other women, and this woman was immature and was working long hours as a maid, and then also had given birth to another daughter, Patricia, who was born from a different father. This has basically created, again, a hostile environment for Oprah Winfrey. And then her mother gave birth to a third daughter that she put up for adoption, possibly was the third daughter by a different man. So Oprah Winfrey was growing up in an extremely dysfunctional home environment that was basically led by women. And this home environment, there she was, again, basically, I believe, started her on the road to having issues as related to life overall. And those issues were exacerbated when she was molested, as she says, molested by a cousin, uncle, and family friend, and when she was 9 years old. And she says that the sexual abuse that went on as related to these men, I believe what happened here as related to this whole situation, basically laid the foundation for Oprah Winfrey's overall perception of men, where she participates in the whole mindset of misandry. I believe what happened with Oprah Winfrey after she dealt with this abuse as related to this matriarchal environment is that she ran into males as related to having these relationships with her cousin, uncle, and family friend. Again, people who she thought she could trust as males. And these first experiences with males basically traumatized Oprah Winfrey. And as they traumatized Oprah Winfrey, they basically changed her whole perception of men that was already bad in and of itself because her father wasn't there in the beginning to basically show her a model of manhood and show her a model of masculinity. Since her father wasn't there to go out here and show her a model of manhood and masculinity and an example of a man, this is what basically changed her whole perception of men overall. And basically, as it changed her perception of men, she learned not to trust the men who to have relationships with. Now, as this went on, she was basically, again, growing up in her adolescence and eventually had another traumatic event, according to some reports, where she basically, as suffering this abuse, eventually, as related to things, she wound up, again, running away from home. And then eventually, according to one report, she got pregnant, but the child was born prematurely. And that story was basically she was sold out by family members. And as things were going on in her life, she was a very intelligent girl. But the sad part is that she was on this road to becoming a woman in crisis due to the poverty that she was in. And again, she was attending Lincoln Middle and High School in Milwaukee, had success in the Upward Bound program, and then was transferred to an affluent Nicollet High School. And after this, she was again in poverty and wanted to fit in with the other kids. And eventually, she began to steal money from her mother and rebel. And this is where she had the change in her life, because this is where she was sent to go live with her father. And sent to go live with her father. And as she was sent to live with her father, who was a barber, she got a bit of stability as he went out here. And she says he was strict, but basically what this man was doing was establishing structure around his daughter, and looking to establish structure around his daughter and give his daughter order. This is something I put in one of my books called All About Nikki the Fabulous first season, because when it comes to matriarchal environments are chaotic because women are emotional and they focus on the short term. And basically Oprah Winfrey's whole life was made chaotic because she had born as a teenage mother who basically didn't understand her role as a woman, as a helpmeet and a support. And Oprah was on the road to the same paradigm of failure of being a teen mom like her mother, and basically almost became a teen mom if her child hadn't died, and basically was following in the footsteps of her mother. But it was her father who gave her that structure. And as he gave her that structure, and when she went to live with him in Nashville, and she went to East Nashville High School, she then went to join the high school speech team, and then went out here and placed second in dramatic interpretation. And then the father again gave her that structure, helped her to start getting jobs, and then she went out here and eventually started to build a little confidence and entered the Miss Black Tennessee beauty pageant and won the Miss Black Tennessee beauty pageant. And eventually what she did was eventually get the attention of a black radio station, which hired her to do news part-time, and won oratory contest. And then eventually this led to her securing a full scholarship to Tennessee State University, and that's where she studied communication. And as she was studying communication, she was again very popular as related to things, and eventually started going out here and starting to build her career in media. Now, as she built her career in media, she said that it was not a surprise to her grandmother, who said that she could talk. But what happened with Oprah, I believe, is again, she was basically looking to escape to the stage because her life was so miserable. And as she was able to escape to the stage, she basically looked to go out here and build this career. And as she built this career, she became the first black female news anchor at Nashville's WLAC TV. And she also went out here and she ran into John Tesh, who was working at a competing Nashville station. And this is where Oprah went from being, again, on the road to being a woman in crisis to a woman in crisis, because this is where we see how her perception of black men basically colored her relationships, because the first relationship she had as related to what she believed to be an actual man, I believe was John Tesh, a white man. And she basically started getting involved with this white man, believing that this white man was, again, better than the black men, because all the black men she ran into at her youth were basically male predators. And with them being male predators, she basically, again, got involved with John Tesh, and that was one of her first relationships. And that basically, again, changed her perception to basically participate in the misandry against black men, because she had a positive experience with a relationship with a white man and didn't have positive relationships with black men. So that was what was going on as Oprah got her first first anchor job. And as she got that first anchor job, eventually what she did in 1976 was move to Baltimore's WJZ TV to anchor the 6 o'clock news. And then after 1977, she was again put in a lower profile position, and then eventually was recruited by a producer, Richard Scher, to co-host WJZ's People Are Talking, a show that was lowly rated, but that show basically became high rated as Oprah became the host of it. And as she was hosting the show, she also did the local version of Dialing for Dollars. And eventually what happened was, in 1984, she was relocated to WLS to host another low-rated show, which was a half-hour morning show called AM Chicago. And after she got hired for that show, eventually that show basically became a huge hit. And it became such a huge hit that it basically started to take over from Donahue, because Donahue at the time in the 80s was considered to be the highest rated talk show because Donahue always presented very intelligent conversations. But Oprah Winfrey started to get over with her personality and her charisma. And eventually, as Oprah was involved with movie critic Roger Ebert, he persuaded her to sign a syndication deal with King World because he already had a deal with At the Movies with the late Gene Siskel. And this was another white man that she was involved with. And again, this basically further colored her perception of white men to see them as ideals because these white men basically looked to help her, whereas black men in her early part of her life looked to abuse her. And as she signed the deal with King World, what Roger Ebert predicted is that she would generate 40 times as much more revenue as his show At the Movies. And eventually, the show that she was on, originally AM Chicago, was renamed the Oprah Winfrey Show and expanded to a full hour. And as it was expanded, Oprah eventually made $30 million and became one of the richest black women in media. And as she became one of the richest black women in media and had her own talk show, this is where Oprah Winfrey, the feminist indoctrinated woman, basically started waging a campaign on her show to demonize the image and reputation of heterosexual black men and look to go out here and demonize the image of black men because of her issues with black men, and was allowed to do this because she basically fit the image that white supremacy had for black women as related to being a mammy, because she was this obese black woman who basically would go out here and be very loud and charismatic. And basically, they could use her to push anti-black narratives. And that's basically what they did with the Oprah Winfrey Show. That's what they did over time. And that's what basically makes Oprah Winfrey one of the most dangerous black women in media, because she basically changed the narrative as related to the image of black men in the 1980s with her show. She basically went out of her way to go out here and present anti-black narratives, presenting black men as womanizers, presenting black men as cheaters, presenting black men as deadbeat dads, presenting black men as losers, but also looking to, again, elevate white people. And that's what basically made Oprah Winfrey into one of the greatest media mammies of the 1980s, even though it contrasts her success, which was what was going on for a lot of black people in America. She was out here, again, pushing anti-black man narratives, and those anti-black man narratives basically laid the foundation for the gender wars that currently go on. And because the mainstream media supported Oprah Winfrey and there was no black man to counter her narratives, many generations of black women got indoctrinated into her misandristic narratives regarding black men. And many black women further got indoctrinated into feminism and started expressing hatred and disdain for black men, as her show was basically misandristic anti-black man propaganda, misandristic anti-black man propaganda that was meant to demonize black men. And as she was basically resonating all across the country and becoming a major success, that basically, as Oprah got syndicated in 1986, she basically laid the foundation for the trend of talk shows by doubling Phil Donahue's national audience and becoming the #1 talk show in America. And basically, as she became the #1 talk show in America, it basically changed the narrative from intelligent discourses like Donahue used to present to more sensationalized stuff that would basically be featured in tabloids, and further going out here and pushing anti-black man narratives on her show. And as she pushed these anti-black man narratives on her show, eventually she started making so much money for the networks and as related to syndication that they basically what they did was they allowed her to not own her own to go out here and own her own show. And as she started to own her own show, what she did was go out here and further expand, and further was allowed to expand into going from having a talk show to going into production and going out here and making adaptations of material. And as she looked to make adaptations of material as related to black literature, she oftentimes went out here and chose material made by black feminists, such as the Gloria Naylor book, The Women of Brewster Place, a movie that basically is filled with anti-black man misandry and basically mirrors Oprah's own life and the abuse that she suffered at the hands of the males in her life that were raised dysfunctionally. And she oftentimes would go out here and push this type of media with her own, with her as related to productions. This started back in 1989. And as Oprah further expanded her media platform, she then looked to go out here and go out here and promote many misandristic writers that were anti-black man, such as the late Toni Morrison, who made books like Song of Solomon and Beloved, and also went out here to push books that showed, again, black women involved with white men, such as The Wedding, and again would go out here and push these types of books as part of her Oprah's Book Club. And as she further looked to expand into film, she then looked to make a series similar to Masterpiece Theater called Oprah Winfrey Presents. And on that first movie adaptation, she had Halle Berry starring in a movie called The Wedding, which was written by Dorothy West, another book that promoted interracial relationships between white men and black women, and was not interested in looking to elevate the black image as related to black love. That is one of the things that it makes Oprah a woman in crisis, because her whole perception of black men is extremely negative. Her whole perception of black men is not one that looks to elevate or looks to support black men who present positive images of black manhood and black masculinity. No, Oprah goes out of her way to go out here and support anyone who promotes anti-black man misandry and looks to promote media that promotes anti-black man misandry, and goes out of her way, not as she's out here, not looking to support building up other black people, but goes out here and going out here and supporting whites and non-blacks like Dr. Phil, Dr. Mehmet Oz, Rachel Ray, and I believe a woman as Susie Orman. These are the people that she likes to push, but she doesn't go out here and look to push other black people as she's built her media empire. And she was allowed to build her own media empire basically because she compromised with white supremacy. And as she compromised with white supremacy, she was all about looking to give them all of the support in pushing, again, anti-black man narratives, and for pushing anti-black man narratives that corrupted a generation of women. They basically gave her a reward, and gave her a reward for making that compromise and allowing her to have this media empire, allowing her to have a media empire where she's had all of this great success. And again, she's gotten that success basically by going out here and betraying the black community as related to not looking to empower other black people, but only looking to support those black bootlicks. Again, only supporting black bootlicks out here as related to whether it be her Harpo Productions, which was her production studio that came out of her talk show, or her whole platform. And again, she regularly goes out here and looks to again demonize black men. And that demonization basically came from her perception of black men And what she does, again, that whole perception is one of the reasons why Oprah Winfrey is a woman in crisis. A woman in crisis who basically believes that she has to be in power and control everything because she can't trust black men. She can't trust black men, and the great irony is she can't trust black men, but it was her father who was the one who helped her to get on the road to success. And as she's out here, she doesn't see how her matriarchal family basically created all of this chaos. They were the ones who created the foundation for most of the chaos that led to her becoming a woman in crisis. And it was her father who provided her the structure and the order that led to her becoming a success. But the whole thing is, instead of looking to support her father and looking to stand by black men, she stands against black men, and stands against black men basically because of the trauma that she suffered at an early age. And what's really sad and scary about Oprah Winfrey is that looks to stand against black men, and will only stand with the kind of black males who will go out here and look to destroy the black community and the black male image. And at this point, as I see it, basically she's been part of a cabal that's been forming with other black people who don't like black men, such as Lee Daniels, Tyler Perry, and Curtis 50 Cent Jackson Esquire, basically looking to form a cabal to control the black image and look to control the black image to ensure that misandry goes on for another generation. And it doesn't matter to Oprah Winfrey because she's got her $1 billion, but the whole thing is, what's scary about her is that she is in control of the black image, looking to promote anti-black misandry and make black women look like victims, but doesn't want to go out here and present you a balanced picture of black men and black women. No, wants to continue promoting anti-black man narratives, and that basically fits the views of the white paymasters that basically have sponsored her from the day that she came on the air. And basically she's gotten lots of benefits at the expense of black men and black women's images. And that's what is the sad part about Oprah Winfrey, is that as her first teacher, her mother was dysfunctional, she continues to perpetuate dysfunction to generations of black women. And as those generations of black women learn from her, they basically, one, get indoctrinated into feminism, and two, they've wind up on a road to a paradigm of failure that I talk about in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, because they buy into the false narratives that she and many other talk show hosts presented in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s and 2010s. And again, this basically corrupted the perception of women for generations, because Oprah Winfrey's just disdain for black men, and especially heterosexual black men, shows how little respect she had for black men. And that's, again, sad, because if it wasn't for her father being the one to help her as she got into her adolescence, she wouldn't have had that success. But that success was, again, tarnished because she didn't have that father earlier in her life to give her that love and care. And because she didn't have that father to give her love and care in her early age, what happened is that Oprah wound up with a twisted perception of black men. And that twisted perception of black men to hate black men basically is the thing that led to Oprah becoming one of the greatest women in crisis of the 20th century, and one of the greatest women in crisis that's basically corrupted the entire generations of women of the 20th and 21st century. That's what's happened with Oprah Winfrey to make her one of the, again, this icons of the sad state of women these days. Why 70% of black women are single, why so many black women are miserable, why so many are caught up in a gender war. Many of them are caught up because they've followed the corrupted information from Oprah Winfrey's perception of men and didn't get a balanced perspective like ones that guys like Phil Donahue tried to present. And what was sad is that there were no black men to, again, present their side of the story, because the white supremacist media wanted to corrupt people's minds. And the only way we started to see the whole pendulum shift was when YouTube opened up in 2006 and black men started to finally start speaking their minds. And that was the only way we started to see the truth as black men such as Dan Freeman, also known as The Avenue, Heavenly Truth One, Ringo, Rick Scorpio, and General Backlash, and many of the pioneers of YouTube started going out here and presenting their talking points that would show you the black man side of the story, not to mention Mad Voodoo Man, aka the Iceman. Again, if it wasn't for these black men going out here and presenting the other side of the story, we wouldn't have the other side of the story, and we would have a completely slanted, misandristic, anti-black man picture, an anti-black man picture that basically is now starting to change now that there are more black men on social media speaking their minds and presenting an intelligent discourse to show the counterpoint to all of Oprah Winfrey's misandristic anti-black man propaganda that has sent so many black women down the road to becoming women in crisis and made the woman crisis in this country progressively worse. A woman crisis that basically, again, was created by the wealthy and those in white supremacy as related to the black community, and fueled by the fires of women like Oprah Winfrey, who basically go out here and present their daddy issues as the narrative that fits white supremacy's framework. That's what happens here with Oprah Winfrey to make her one of the greatest women in crisis in the history of the woman crisis. Now, if you want to learn what leads to women winding up on the road to becoming women in crisis, you can pick up my book, The Woman Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Woman Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see how a father can transform a daughter's life, you can pick up my screenplay book all about Nikki the Fabulous first season, which goes in depth on showing you how a father does things differently than a mother. And you can pick that book up along with The Woman Crisis and my other book, which details the paradigm of failure that basically many black women and modern feminist indoctrinated women wind up on. You can find all of these books on Amazon.com, along with my other screenplay book, all about Marilyn. You can find all of those screenplay books at Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format, and you can find most of my other books at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. Now, this episode of Hollywood Historical Women in Crisis was one that was requested by a viewer, and if you want to request a video, you can drop a donation for a minimum of $15 to the PayPal or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Now available for the first time in paperback, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. Learn all the reasons why so many black women can't find a husband and why 70% of black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today. Support black-owned and black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.